Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's Tuesday talk, we're going to pick up where we left off in the book, The Science of Getting Rich. So I ended last time at the very end of a chapter. The beginning of the next chapter is called, Is Opportunity Monopolized? So one of the things that I started to feel when I realized I wanted to set a huge goal for myself and try something new, along with self-doubt and along with like all the what ifs and everything, I started feeling one of the what ifs was, what if what I'm doing is such a saturated market or such a saturated this or that. You see that everywhere, especially in the fitness industry, which is what I'm going for. So this chapter really helped to reassure myself, along with the realization that every single one of us has a totally different outlook and experience on what we're going through, which means we have a totally different version of something to share. So I don't know if that helps any of you guys as far as your self-doubt and feeling like maybe what you're doing might be a saturated field, but nobody can put the spin on it like you can. So I'm just going to jump right in and start reading. It says, "No man is kept poor because opportunity has been taken away from him, because other people have monopolized the wealth and have put a fence around it. You may be shut off from engaging in business in certain lines, but there are other channels open to you. Probably it would be hard for you to get control of any of the great railroad systems. If this is your first time on my channel, I'm reading this book, and it's actually written back in the 1930s, so some of the stuff is a little bit irrelevant now. They start talking about like farming and railroad, and those are very good businesses to get into, but they're not as new as they were back then. The field is pretty monopolized, so the railroad systems. But for the electric railway, business is still in its infancy. The offers plenty scope for enterprise, and it will be but a very few years until traffic and transportation through the air will become a great industry, and in all its branches will give employment to hundreds of thousands and perhaps millions of people. Why not turn your attention to the development of aerial transportation instead of competing with J&J Hill and others for a chance in the steam railway world?" So again, it's a little bit outdated, but the idea still stands that there are other opportunities, there are other fields we can go into, or there's a different way we can update what we're doing to put a whole new twist on it. Something I did want to bring up with this part of the chapter was, I don't know if you guys saw my other video on the creative versus the competitive process. Believing in there being an opportunity for yourself and focusing on the fact that yours is waiting for you comes from the creative process. If you're in the competitive process, you're worried about the other guy. You're always comparing yourself. You think somebody else can get there first. You think somebody else can, take yours, or what have you. But like I said before, when you're in the creative process, your goal. So like this is you starting out, moving towards your goal. Your goal is what you've got your sights set on, because it's being formed for only you as you move closer to it. It kind of meets you halfway. Like I never used to think of things this way, but it made me feel so much better about, taking a leap of faith and going for what I'm trying to do, because once I believed that for myself, it didn't feel like I could fail. There's ways of not doing things, and I'm sure I'll figure that out along the way too, but that doesn't mean, as long as I don't stop what I'm doing, and as long as I don't keep changing my mind so my direction keeps changing, I'm going to get there. Because everybody's end result is being created for them as they move closer to it, which hugely helped the way I was thinking about what I'm doing. It is quite true that if you are a workman in the employ of the Steel Trust, you have very little chance of becoming the owner of a plant in which you work. The owner of the plant in which you work. But it is also true that if you will commence to act in a certain way, there's that certain way again, it's capitalized, you can soon leave the employ of the Steel Trust. You can buy a farm of from 10 to 40 acres and engage in business as a producer of food. Um, there is great opportunity at this time for men who will live upon small tracts of land and cultivate the same intensively. Such men will certainly get rich. You may say that it is impossible for you to get land, but I am going to prove to you that it is not impossible, and that you can certainly get a farm if you will go to work in a certain way. So again, this is just an example, but it's kind of emphasizing on the fact that no matter what you're going after, if you're doing it in this certain way that it keeps talking about, that you can have that. And I want to say this is the chapter that it starts. That it starts explaining exactly what that certain way is. I mean, so far we've pretty much defined what some of it is. You have to be intentional about what you're doing, and you have to have such a strong drive to do it and the faith that it's going to happen. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. You basically just don't give up on yourself, and you keep going until you get there. And you see it clearly, and you make sure you're focusing on the good feelings about it instead of the doubt and the negative feelings. At different periods, the tide of opportunity set in different directions, according to the needs of the whole and the particular stage of social evolution which has been reached. At present in America, it is setting towards agriculture and the allied industries and professions. Today, opportunity is open before the factory worker in his line. It is open before the businessman who supplies the farmer more than before the one who supplies the factory worker, and before the professional man who waits upon the farmer more than before the one who serves the working class. I mean, so everything's always evolving, and like I said, because this was written so long ago, things have definitely changed, but it's just an example. If we look around, there are other up-and-coming opportunities, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific one. This next sentence I highlighted, and it says, there is abundance of opportunity for the man who will go with the tide instead of trying to swim against it. So I'm not necessarily sure what W.D. Waddles meant by that statement, but it stood out to me because it meant something of my own. To me, it means not forcing it, I felt like I was swimming against the tide in my life when I was stuck in jobs, that didn't feel like me just because I thought that's what I had to do. And that's kind of what that statement means to me is when you're doing what you're meant to do, when you're doing something that is effortless to you, well, things still take work, but when it feels effortless because it's something you want to be doing, it does feel like you're going with the flow. It feels like you're just flowing with life. And I've found with myself that ever since I kind of put the 9-to-5 behind me and I made this solid decision to pursue fitness, that's how my life feels. Before, it always felt like I was swimming against, a current, because I felt like I was putting myself in a situation just because other people said I had to, or that's how I had to live my life, or that's just how you progress in life. Go to school, get a job, have a family, get a house, have kids. I felt stuck in that, and it's, for some people, a lot of those things are their dream, but for me, none of it seemed to fit, and I realized it literally felt like I was going against something the more I tried to force myself to do just what I thought I needed to do. And then I made a note next to that saying I thought I had to protect myself before I know this. I actually don't remember what I meant by that. I think it was about protecting myself from the what ifs, and the fear of not knowing how I was going to do anything. The factory workers, either as individuals or as a class, are not deprived of opportunity. The workers are not being kept down by their masters. They are not being ground by the trust and combinations of capital. As a class, they are where they are because they do not do things in a certain way. That actually just gave me an idea. It reminded me of the last 9-to-5 job I had and how stuck I felt and how I knew that I wasn't following my heart. And I wonder if the the main point of doing things in a certain way is to like really go within first and find out who you were really supposed to be. I mean, it kind of goes back to my previous video on making a plan on how to make it. You know, you define how to make it yourself for yourself. So I'm going to stop there, you guys. If any of you guys have read this book before, or you are reading it now on your own, and you have other insights and points of view on it, I would really like to talk about it. Go ahead and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you have any questions or anything, just hit me up either here on YouTube or on my Mel Marino Fit Facebook fan page, kind of. I'm usually more active over there, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.